Now, you have been one of the issues that you've been working on for quite some time is our handguns and gun laws. And this stand your ground law has come out of this. It's an NRA ALEC written law that is now, I think, in like at least a dozen states across the country. It's just bizarre, and we
Yep.
can see where it leads to.
Yeah, in different forms, even more states, because there's a number of them that some of them say that you can shoot first, in your home, excuse me, but you can't shoot first if you're in this public place, or you can in any public place, but not some other public places. The point of it is that this is part of what has been I would call it a cultural assault by the National Rifle Association, and as you pointed out very correctly, ALEC, and the NRA is a big contributor to ALEC. I mean, this is just all lots of corporate money floating around. And the whole point here is really, I think, to erase any historical memory of what kind of country that we were. Essentially, they want to, play up their Wild West, the whole Wild West thing. They want to pretend that we were always a country of everyone taking guns wherever they wanted to. They conveniently forget that when you watch something even like the old Wyatt Earp story, when people came to the edge of town, they checked their guns. In fact, when the Clantons and the others didn't, we had the OK Corral shootout. That was the reason why. The point is that to get back to more recently, as of the late 80s, there were only about a dozen and a half around our states or so, 18 states, that allowed concealed carry. Now we've got concealed carry in every state but one. Illinois is the only one that does not have it. A couple states now, Kansas allows people to conceal carry in K through 12 schools. Think about that for a second. A few other states, Texas, I believe, is one of them. I'm trying to think if it's Utah, allow it on college campuses. 23 states allow concealed carry in bars, including Ohio, the one I'm sitting in, because as we all know, booze and guns go well together.
There's nothing funner than getting wasted and shooting off a couple of rounds. You'd
I
like
think
to
if
wait
you can't-
till you're outside the bar to do it, but if not, I mean, sometimes you just get the urge.
Why not in the bar? I mean, sometimes at night you're sort of thinking, what should I do? Should I smoke some crack cocaine and go drive and go speed my boat into oncoming traffic, or should I go to a bar and start shooting and drinking? These are things I find that all go well together.
There's nothing like going into a bar and playing that deer hunter game and whipping out your own pistol and blowing that entire machine away.
Exactly. It's not necessarily the best high, but it's close. It's up there with like driving and heroin use. They're all good ways to use their time. So this has been an assault on really, and this is what the right does, as we know. And this is what the point I want to make, which I think is so important that I try to make. Our one of our esteemed listeners who I put up before, our friend Gaius over at America Blog, wrote a great piece that people should check out on this today. And others have done the same thing, which is to make this connection, which is this is part of the right-wing strategy to, again, when they're trying to take us back to some golden age that really never existed. It's kind of like what they do on taxes. They try to pretend it never used to be like this, when you and I, of course, know that in the 1950s there was a 91% top tax rate at some point. They don't want anybody to understand that. There's nothing different here. This is the same war by the 1% against the 99%. When it's big pharma, and they're trying to not give people the necessary prescriptions they need and whatever so they can enrich themselves and take away your health care, we scream and yell about that, and we see that the way we should see that. When it's Wall Street and they're selling us bad products that they're betting against themselves, and they're taking away your pension so they can enrich themselves, we understand that. The gun issue, for some reason, hasn't, people haven't fully gotten that understanding, and I've been trying to scream it from the rooftops that this is no different. This is not about the Second Amendment. You have that right, and the Supreme Court, frankly, went a lot further in delivering, in saying that right isn't even part of being in a militia, which, if you can read well-regulated militia, makes no sense. But I'm not going to get into that. The point is that even this crazy right-wing Supreme Court said that people had the right, that there is the right to regulate who can get guns, i.e. criminals and whatever, and concealed carry laws, which are what we're talking about here. But you see, so this is not about the Second Amendment. What it is that a number of gun manufacturers, arms dealers really, who run the NRA as a front group, are enriching themselves by killing the hoi polloi. You know what I mean? The riffraff. Me and you, the rest of it. It's no different than the way we look at 99% versus 1% on other issues.
Well, and of course, we see the electoral value in this. I mean, you could see it from day one of the Obama administration. This notion they're coming to take your guns away. I mean, just think about the gulf between the idea of a right to carry a gun or a right to own a gun and the idea that you have the right to shoot someone.
Because they look different.
Because they
look suspicious.
They look different, or that you have unilaterally determined that you feel threatened, and that's what's going on in this situation. I had an emailer who sent me an email saying, like, if I had seen a suspicious looking guy by my car, and this guy seems to have a slightly different set of facts than have come out, but even if I take his facts as they are, we know that Zimmerman here followed this guy. We know that the cops knew that he followed this guy. We know that Zimmerman knew the cops were on the way. We know that this guy just took it upon himself because he thought there was a rash of burglaries around. He decided this guy was a criminal, and he wanted to be some type of superhero. And it ended up with this kid who was completely innocent, shot. And beyond that, the implications of this law are that you have the cops who let this guy just walk away with his gun. I mean, it's just stunning.
Well, that's the whole thing. See, this work. The NRA usually they come out and they try to change the subject. I mean, they've done a little bit of that here, but this one is so clear cut. When Gabby Giffords was shot, it was a crazy guy. They of course won't admit the fact that it was a guy that the military had rejected because of drug use and because of mental issues, and that should have been in a database so that he wouldn't have been sold a gun. But at least they can try to deflect here. But see here, this actually worked out the way it was supposed to work out. They want to deny that now, but a white guy in his gated community saw somebody that looked different, that shouldn't have been inside of his big gate in his wealthy community walking around. Somebody different, somebody poor, somebody who's a minority, somebody who's part of the 99%, to put it plainly. And he got scared. And when you're a privileged white guy and you get scared to the NRA and to these guys, you have the right to just shoot somebody else because they may be a threat to you. And I mean, that is what this is about. That's at its core. At its core, the NRA and ALEC are racist. All right, they are. It's not a shock. I mean, the organization that should shock anybody, the organization that pushed these bills, ALEC, is the same one that has pushed all the bills around the country to suppress votes. Geez, who are they going after there? The same guys that are pushing tort reform everywhere, which every study will show you hurts poorer and minorities because they can't get in a court of law when they're hurt by a big corporation. There's a rhyme and reason to this. And it's so important to me, as someone who's worked on this issue, to make sure people understand, how this needs to be seen, that this is part of this larger battle we're all fighting. Are people going to be able to essentially say, I'm going to get my taxes cut, I'm going to be able to not worry about anybody else, go live in my gated community away from everybody else, and anytime somebody suspicious shows up because I'm a white dude of privilege, I'm going to shoot them, and the state's going to protect that?
Well, I mean, look, in this case, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Zimmerman was necessarily white or necessarily privileged. I mean, I think there is the broader thematic issue here. Look, I mean, it's clearly Zimmerman is racist in the way that he is functioning here. There's no doubt about it. You cannot. The idea that he immediately goes from black kid wearing hoodie to I'm going to chase this guy down. I mean, never mind the idea that he's calling it into the cops, but I'm going to chase this guy down with carrying my pistol is the racist point there. The way that they've sold these laws has undoubtedly no doubt used race as an element in this. But you're right.
Well, you brought it up earlier. That's important. I mean, the whole Obama's going to take my guns, and they've played into this fear of Obama, and Wayne LaPierre, the president of a major organization that you would think, might act in a respectable manner because of that. Oh, Obama is has been communist trained. Obama, and he makes sure to throw out Obama and Kenyan in the same sentence and the rest of that. They're playing on the race of, obviously, of the president, that he's going to come take your guns like all those scary black people that are going to come and break into your house, so you better protect yourself and assault you on the streets wherever you go, so you better be ready to shoot first if you have to. Meanwhile, President Obama, the only things he's done related to guns are passing bills that now allow you to carry guns in national parks and pack them in your luggage on Amtrak. He has expanded gun rights, actually.
And here's the interesting thing, and it never occurred to me until I ended up going down to one of those Glenn Beck rallies, an 828 rally. There was two types of people there. There were these fundamentalists who were basically pushing for the Bible to replace the Constitution, and then there was a group of sort of the hardcore Tea Partiers. And when they say Obama's coming to take the gun, it's not just a question of like, oh, he's one of those typical namby-pamby liberals who doesn't believe in gun rights. No, you got to follow the narrative out there. Why is he coming to take our guns? Well, of course he's coming to take our guns because when he tries to turn this country into a communist state by importing all these Kenyan ideas into it, we're not going to have the ability to fight back. That's the mentality. I mean, I spoke to at least 3 or 4 guys, 5 or 6 out of maybe the 40 I interviewed, 10, 11% ratio. I'm picking people out at random, and they're telling me the same scenario. Like, I'm not going to be honest. I can't be totally honest with you. We know we're waiting for, but all I'm saying is get that freeze-dried food and make sure you're loaded to bear. I mean, because this is all part of the way they sell this narrative. And if
I've been at those rallies. Well, go ahead.
If you push the narrative beyond a right to carry arms, a right to have a gun to go hunting, all the way to you have a right to shoot somebody, to stand your ground, to not do everything in your power not to shoot somebody, but on the contrary, that you have a greater, broader license to shoot someone. That's what that means. It just means that your standard of responsibility when you're involved in any type of conflict is less. You have the ability to whip out that gun earlier in that confrontation, and this is what you get.
No, and again, it doesn't. See, you brought up the point before about Zimmerman. Whether he's privileged doesn't matter. His parents had a place in that gay community, and whether he's white doesn't matter in the end. What matters is the overall thematic, and that's what you brought up earlier. Again, it's about the fact that if in your gay community, in your wealthier neighborhood, wherever, if somebody shows up there that looks suspicious to you, and but believe me, and you know this too, Sam, that if I show up somewhere, or you show up somewhere, anybody shows up somewhere, that is in a completely different situation than this one. If you're dealing with an African American community and someone were to shoot first, somebody in the African American community wouldn't be able to use this defense. They'd be in prison immediately, and how that would work. This is written for very specific people. All right, and that's the whole thing here, is that the specifics of who George Zimmerman is doesn't really matter. The specifics of, they are saying 2 things. One, that we're going to give back your rights. That's the way they always frame it. The rights have been taken away from you, of you to defend yourself from. And they're talking to white people. They're using coded language, and they're talking about those black people and those poor people and those scummy hippies and whatever. It's pretty simple. The second thing is, again, remember, this is an economic issue. I know it's considered a social issue. People talk about it alongside social issues, but it is an economic issue. It is wealthy gazillionaires who make money off of selling weapons that kill people. The more weapons they sell, that they're able to sell, the richer they will get. It is just that simple. So there's no rhyme or reason why they would be against a background check to stop criminals from getting guns, unless it meant fewer people would buy guns and they'd make less money. I need someone else to explain to me why else they would be against that. And I think that that's such an important part of all this. So that's why I've tried to sort of sit there and sort of connect the dots on this. That this is just part of the same thing that we are all fighting right now. The same battle again. Are there going to be people that, for all intents and purposes, can separate themselves away from the rest of society, have no responsibility because they're so wealthy and they're, and in their own areas and whatever, and then if we even look at them the wrong way, they can shoot the rest of us? Is that the kind of society we want to live in?
It's stunning, and again, sort of the racial element as well. We hear We just played that clip of Geraldo Rivera saying that you can't if you're a young black or Latino kid, you can't go out wearing a hoodie. You're inviting this type of thing. I mean, just for a moment, I want folks to think about that. Think about the notion that look, we all put on our clothes every day, and we contemplate how what image are we projecting out there. Some of us less than others, much to our detriment. But be that as it may, we do that. The idea that you have to put your clothes on with the burden of, hey, am I inviting someone to shoot me if I wear this clothes? It's like there are moments where I just like I can't. Just the idea of having to go through my childhood life, everything else being equal. And to have to think about that notion, and that burden is on me rather than on something in society, it's just unbelievable. I just don't know how. I really sometimes I'm just amazed that kids who are supposedly walking around with that burden or should have that burden on them can even function in society at all.
The worst thing that you have to worry about, Sam, is that you may look too Jewy to the Ron Paul crowd.
Well, that happens. I mean, sometimes that's unavoidable to any crowd.